Want to welcome everyone to the channel. You're watching Texas Silver. I've got Bill Holter with me. I know I've built this up for a couple days or a week or two now, so he's here. He's a good buddy of mine. We've known each other for about 6 months. During that time period, I've gotten to know him on a personal level. Very intelligent guy. He's a great guy, and I consider him a good friend of mine. So just to give you a little background on Bill, he was a stockbroker for 23 years and he was a branch manager for 12. He's a precious metals expert, and he's also a broker for Miles Franklin. How long have you been doing that, Bill? The Miles Franklin?
Since 2011.
Okay, so Bill is a wealth of knowledge, and another thing as I've gotten to know Bill, I've found out that he does not watch any YouTube channels. He doesn't follow anyone. So everything that he puts out is his opinion, his thoughts and facts, and he gets his information from reading and what else, Bill?
Just current events
and life experience, right?
And common sense.
And common sense.
A rarity today.
Right. So what you get from Bill is going to be from him. He's not going to be regurgitating, another channel or someone else. He's the real deal. I appreciate him having me over. We're actually in his cabin. He has a beautiful place out here in Texas, and he was gracious enough to let me come over and, show me his place and all that. And him and I, again, are good friends, and we're building a good relationship. So, again, I appreciate you, Bill, letting me come out and do this. So, some of these questions come from viewers, and others are actually from Jeremiah Babe. He also has a YouTube channel. If you don't follow him already, go check out his channel. Some of his questions are in here, and then some of them are mine. And then I'm also going to release the filter and let you kind of talk about whatever you want. So this will probably be a 2 or 3 part series depending on how long we go. So I guess we'll get into this. So everyone, that's kind of in the metal space, they talk about being your own central bank. So can you talk about the importance of being your own central bank and how you become your own central bank?
Well, the whole idea is not to have any intermediaries between you and your capital. For instance, if you woke up tomorrow morning and the banking system was completely down, what would you have? You'd have whatever you have, and that's it. And I've talked about this: when credit breaks, stuff's not going to get to stores. Even if it did, if the banking system and credit has broken, how are you going to pay for it? You can't transact. But generally, the idea of being your own central bank is you don't want to have or give anyone the ability to shut you off. And that's the biggest problem with the central bank digital currencies, is if we do an interview like this and we talk about truth, which doesn't align with the official narratives, if they don't like you, they just flip a switch or press a button or whatever, and you're out of business. Not only out of business, but you're out of the ability to buy food, the ability to pay for utilities, your mortgages, your whatever debts you have. You can't transact if they shut you off. Being your own central bank, if you're holding gold and silver, I'm an advocate that you don't hold it all in one place. You don't hold it all, within reach. I am an advocate of using private vaults, and not necessarily big name private vaults. You probably want to do 2 or 3 different vaults and then have some metal yourself, so it's geographically diversified. But the idea being, when the system goes down, the vast majority of people, and we've talked about this, I'm not sure whether we did it with Jeremiah or not, but I've spoken many times on the Great Taking, and that is not speculation. Those laws are actually on the books, and when the system goes down, your bank will bail your funds in to save their asses. Your broker, if you think that, you know, your statement that says you've got $500,000 or $2 million or $5 million or whatever in an account, if your broker goes down, those stocks and those bonds are on their balance sheet for your benefit. They're not yours. You have that intermediary of the broker between you and your capital. So if they go down, they're going to bail themselves out with your money. So there's a lot of people who think, yeah, you know, I made it, 50, 60, 70 years old. I got tons of money. I got more money than I can spend for the rest of my life. And then the next morning you wake up and it's gone.
Right. So when you have your capital, money, whatever, which gold and silver are the only money, and you hold it in your possession, then there's no counterparty risk.
Right.
Right.
The only counterparty risk is someone sticks a gun to your head and says, "Give me your medal," or sticks a gun to your wife's head or your children's head and says, "You know, give me the combination to your vault or your safe,"
right,
or whatever.
And so that's why you never want to have everything all in this one place. You don't want to have all your metal. I store very little in my safe, and that's kind of like a throwdown thing for me. So like, yeah, you wipe me out. This is all of it. But yeah, okay. So that's actually questions I was going to get to later. But since we're talking about it, so vault storage. I know that there are a lot of scams out there. I've been hearing about that. You know, they're charging, you know, people that aren't really educated when it comes to the metal space. What's going on is people are wanting to roll their IRAs over to gold and silver, and so it has to be in storage because you can't hold your own metal in an IRA. And so what's going on is these people are being taken advantage of. They're paying, say, $4,000 for American Eagle, Gold Eagle, which you and I both know that should be what, $2,500 or so,
right,
give or take, just for under. You know, at today's prices. So how does someone, I guess, navigate that? And
yeah, there's another scam aspect to that, if you will. You don't want to do business with one entity that does everything for you. You don't want that entity to buy your metal, act as trustee and do the bookkeeping for your account, and also store it. And the reason being, you want 3 separate entities, which means you've got 2 entities always watching the other entity.
Right, so there's checks and balances.
There's checks and balances, exactly. And we've seen that a few times in the past where, a perfect example, I think it was in 2006 or 2007, and I'm not positive, I believe it was Morgan Stanley, I could be wrong, but what they did was, and it wasn't huge, I think it was only a couple $100 million worth of metal, of silver, that they supposedly bought for clients, and for years charged storage fees. And it turns out they never bought the metal was never in the vault, but they charged storage fees, and they took the money in originally to buy the metal. Those people were made whole once it came to light. The company did actually go out and buy the metal and deliver to whoever wanted it delivered. But that's the danger of buying, having it accounted for, and having it stored with one entity. Because the way it should work is you contact someone like me as a broker to buy the metal. You have a separate third-party administrator. They do the accounting for it. They transfer all the monies. And then you have a third entity, the vault itself, that don't have, there's no entanglement as far as ownership of those businesses. They're completely separate. That way, if I buy the metal for you as a customer, and it's paid for and accounted by the administrator, if the metal doesn't get to the vault, then it's reported that the metal didn't get to the vault.
Okay.
Whereas if you have one entity doing all of it, you don't know
right.
whether anything was done. So it's just a good idea to not do what they try to show you or claim is the easiest way to do it. One-stop shopping.
Okay.
That's dangerous.
Right. And personally, I don't have vault storage. I don't feel I have the amount of metal that I need. That I still have enough places available that I can store it myself. But it definitely is not all in one place. And I know that we've talked about this before, and I don't remember exactly what it was. You can remind me. But I know that you had, I think it was 2002. What was it? Canadian maples that
exactly
that you had stored, and when you actually, a couple of years later, you wanted possession of those coins,
right.
And you got the right amount of coins back, but they weren't yours because they were of a different date.
Right. I bought 1/10 ounce maples. They were 2001. I stored at Delaware Depository, which is well-known, huge vault. Decided to leave the country in 2006 and did not want to leave metal inside the United States. So I started the process to ship metal to a vault in Switzerland. And when the coins were received, I forget whether they were 05 or 06 coins, but they were not my 2001 coins. Was I hurt financially? No. But I paid for segregated storage,
right.
And I didn't get my original coins back.
Right. So your storage wasn't segregated.
Correct.
Or they might have sold yours off, and then once you wanted it, yeah, we got to get these right. coins for. So, okay. So gold to silver ratio. What would you recommend for someone to have? Me, I'm 99% silver. I just feel that it's going to perform better over time, and that's why I've done it. I know silver obviously becomes a storage issue, and right. So that's why a lot of people will go for gold if they don't have the room for storage. But what would you recommend for a ratio for gold to silver?
Yeah, the gold to silver ratio right now is 84-1, which has come right. down. It was as high as 120. Understand that what that means basically is it takes 84 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. But it comes out of the ground at 10-1. So God's ratio is 10-1.
Right.
Man's ratio is 84-1. Man is, for lack of better terms, an idiot. One of them's right and one of them's wrong, and you've got to trust that God's ratio is correct. Silver, over hundreds of years, traded at a 16-1 ratio rather than 10-1 because it was discounted in price to account for you had to carry or transport 10 times as much silver as gold to be transporting the same amount of capital.
Right.
So that's why 16-1, and that was the original coinage in the U.S. was roughly 16-1. As far as your personal mix, what I've just told you about the gold to silver ratio, what that says is silver, price-wise or value-wise, is going to be gold on steroids. It's going to way outperform gold. So you want to be heavier in gold. A typical mix during normal times, you'd probably want to be 70% gold, 30% silver. And I'm going to say today, you want to be at least 70% silver and only 30% gold. And as the price of silver outperforms gold, then you peel a little bit of right. silver off, you buy gold with it, and you'll end up with more gold ounces in the end
right.
than if you just bought it outright today. I don't have a problem, and especially with new buyers, I think new buyers should concentrate 100% on silver. The problem with silver, as you mentioned, is storage. And you've got to decide mentally whether you want all of it in your hand or if you're willing to store. If you're talking $1 million or $2 million, $700,000 of silver or $1 million of silver, you're talking some weight.
Right. You need a pickup truck to move that.
Right. Exactly. So it's a personal decision whether you want to store or whether you want to keep it all on your own property. But if you are willing to store, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with somebody doing 100% silver.
Right.
And then over time, using some of that silver as it increases faster than gold does to buy your gold. And like I said, you'll end up with more gold ounces.
Right. So for someone that's starting out for the first time, I already know the answer to this because we've had this conversation multiple times, but what are you going to recommend for someone that doesn't know anything about silver? They don't know where to start. What should they be buying first?
Yeah, I'm going to assume that the bulk of your audience are Americans. If you're an American, you want to own junk silver. You cannot own junk silver in an IRA. So within an IRA, if you want U.S. Mint lineage coin, the only one available is the Silver Eagle. But the reason you want junk silver is because it's the smallest denomination. Dimes are the smallest denomination of silver. Call it $1.40 face amount is 1 ounce. So if you have 14 dimes versus 1 eagle,
right,
it gives you 14 transactions versus 1.
Right.
And the other advantage, junk is U.S. Mint lineage. It really can't be counterfeited.
Right.
I mean, you could counterfeit the coins, but then you got to run them through a laundry machine or something because they've got to show wear. They have to show that they were used or scratched.
Right.
They're not pretty, but as long as they say 1964 or earlier on them, you know they're 90% silver. Even if you go back with some of the mercury dimes, and those are worn much more because they were in circulation so much longer. Some of those dates have worn off. But if you drop it on a table versus a current dime,
right,
you can hear the difference. You look on the edge, you can see the difference. So there's never a problem as far as authenticity.
Right. And is it really worth someone's time to go to the trouble to counterfeit a dime?
In today's world, no.
Today's world, yeah.
In future world, I think that could become an issue.
Right. Absolutely.
But again, they do have to show wear. If somebody comes to you with an absolute, perfect looking dime or quarter,
probably need to have it tested.
Right.
Right.
Or at least drop it on the table.
Right. Yeah. Because there's definitely a sound difference, and they do feel different and all that. So I was recently told about this, I guess, Jack Sherman, and I got this off of one of the comments. So if the name is wrong, then that the viewer was incorrect. But the U.S. Mint director, apparently since March 1st of this year, rumor is that they stopped making silver eagles. So what do you think's going on with that?
I really don't know what to make of it. I did hear that very same thing. I have a reader that sends me each week the amount that was delivered, and he was jumping up and down this past week saying it's been 4 weeks and they haven't delivered anything. So why, I wouldn't even really want to speculate.
Okay. Well, I know we were talking earlier, and I thought you mentioned something about they don't want to drive the price.
That's a possibility. But by law, the law governing the mint, they have to go out and produce as many eagles as
demanded.
Demand.
Right.
And they didn't do it last year. They didn't do it the year before. I mean, last year premiums got up to $20 over spot.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. It was like $50 for an eagle.
Right, because they didn't make enough eagles to satisfy demand. And it sounds to me like if they haven't made anything in 4 weeks, there certainly has been demand in the last 4 weeks.
For sure. Okay. So you think they're just not able to get the metal, or?
Well, obviously, if they've got to go out and buy 1 million ounces or 2 million ounces or whatever, for the demand, to satisfy the demand, that's going to push the price up. You could go full on conspiracy theory as to what the potential reasons are for them not minting the eagles. I don't really understand. I really don't understand why they're not doing it.
All right, Bill. So lately, the price of metals have been climbing, and actually, we just checked, and silver is it's creeping up to $29 an ounce,
Close.
and then you've got gold that is creeping up to 2,400 an ounce. So why is this price action happening now?
I can tell you for sure it's not Americans doing this. If you notice the premiums across the board on coins, bars, rounds, whatever, here in North America, the premiums have collapsed. And that's a function of retail for probably the last, I want to say, call it 10 weeks even, 2.5 months. The retail business has been quiet, but you're seeing price action. And the reason we're seeing price action is you've got central banks all over the world that are buying gold. You have the Chinese population buying gold and silver. And India has become a huge importer. The month of January was strong. The month of February was strong, call it fivefold. I mean, the demand out of India exploded in February. So what you're looking at is this is not a U.S. event, and obviously, we talked about this forever, that the price mechanism would be taken away from COMEX and taken away from the LBMA, and that's where we are now. The central banks are buying, and another thing is you're seeing exchanges of various different commodities, financial products, etc., all over the world, open everywhere. And what I think that is, I think you've got foreigners understanding where this is going. When I say where this is going, the dollar is going to collapse.
Right.
It's no longer going to be the world's reserve currency. And they're front running to be able to continue to trade markets and not have to do it under the, if you want to call it the Anglo curtain or whatever. They won't have to be trading through London, won't have to trade through New York. They could trade through Dubai, they could trade through Shanghai. I mean, you name it. But there have been exchanges opening all over the world.
Right. So isn't it, from what I understand, the Shanghai, they've got gold priced almost, $100 more an ounce, and then silver's approximately $3 more an ounce? Is that?
Yeah, the last I saw was a couple bucks on silver and about $60 on gold. And I mean, who knows? You could see that spread open overnight, and all I can say is every night that you go to bed, the following morning the world could be entirely different. We're very close to that day coming.
Right. So do you think that the West is losing control of the pricing mechanism on these metals?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. I mean, you wouldn't see silver over $25. You wouldn't see gold really over $2,000 if it was up to the West. I mean, if it was up to the powers that be in the United States, we'd still have $250 gold and $7 or $8 silver. But slowly but surely, the offtake of physical metal, that's the Achilles heel, is they can print as many dollars as they want,
right,
but they can't print ounces.
Right. So what is physically above ground, and I keep hearing this, I follow different channels, obviously, but I've been hearing that the supply of above ground silver is, because of the industrial demand and central banks and countries and whoever else are buying all this metal up, it's being consumed quicker than it can be.
Oh, way
produced.
quicker. Yeah, way quicker. I mean, we've been in a deficit now for at least 4 or 5 years.
Right.
The real wild card is the Green Revolution. Even the Silver Institute put numbers out. The numbers I saw end of last year didn't really reflect the additional demand in solar. Now all of a sudden I understand there are new numbers, and I've not seen it, but I understand that there's new numbers that they're talking about. The demand for just solar alone is like a couple 100 million ounces.
Right.
And I mean, global production, you're only looking at what? It's shy of we'll call it 1 billion ounces. It's shy of 1 billion.
Right, and so they've pretty much found all the easy deposits. So there's more silver. It just costs a lot more.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If you go back to the turn of the century, go back to 2000, because the prices were so depressed, you had $250 to $300 gold, you had $5, $6, $7 silver. Because those prices were so low, many gold and silver mines, what they had to do to survive was high grade. They had to take the easy, low bearing fruit. They had to take the easy stuff that wasn't expensive to produce to stay in business, and it left them with the harder produce material. On top of that, we've gone through now at least 10 years of a bear market in the mining industry, where basically, which is probably the most capital intensive industry on the planet, where capital or capital flows had been shut off. When I say shut off, these companies, they need to borrow for production. They need to borrow to drill. You saw probably 2,500 or more junior miners go out of business in the last 10 years. And that's just a function of the capital was not available. They might have had a great piece of property,
right,
but they couldn't get it past the finish line because they didn't have the money to do it.
Right.